Well, welcome to the South Point Ryder Cup special. This is going to be a all golf show today as we talk about the Ryder Cup, which kicks off this weekend in Italy. First time it's ever been played in Italy, the 91-year history of the Ryder Cup. And it looks like it's going to be a titanic battle as the U.S. top 12 go against the European top 12 over in Italy for the first time. European team has done very well in Europe, winning the last 30 in a row. The last time the USA team won in Europe, Ray Floyd was on the team at 51 years old, where he scored 3 points. And Phil Mickelson was not on the team. Phil Mickelson was in his second year on the PGA Tour, had already accomplished a couple of wins, but was bypassed when it came time to make the team. So Phil's not on that team, and he's not on this team. And that might be something that we'll be looking at, as the USA is a little short on leadership. And we'll talk about that a little bit later in the show. Hi, everybody. I'm Barry Phillips, and joining me today is Rex Miller, former UNLV golfer and better known as second ball All-American. Rex, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing really good, thanks.
Yeah, pretty exciting, this Ryder Cup every couple of years. Yeah. I don't leave the TV for, 3 days.
No, it's a great event. It's a great event, unlike anything in golf, so It's exciting.
Yeah, there's no money. For a while there was an argument that the players should be paid to play in this event because everyone's making so much money off of it, PGA and so forth. But now that's kind of gone by the wayside, and everybody's playing just to have, the pride of playing for the USA. And there's a lot of players that say they've never been more nervous than the first time they put the tee in the ground at the Ryder Cup. So they tee it off in Italy. Unfortunately, Francesco Molinari's not on the team.
Yeah, that's too bad. Here we just, the course was selected 8 years ago, and I'm sure the enthusiasm and excitement with an Italian course would be to have an Italian on the team, but that's not the case.
Yeah. Well, his brother, Eduardo, and Francesco were both on many Ryder Cup teams, and Francesco got as high as I don't think he ever accomplished number one, but he was in the top 5 in the world. And remember, he was leading the Masters and hit it in the water, and he really never recovered after that.
Yeah.
And so he's there, but he's not even one of the captains on the team. Oh, I'm sorry. He is a captain on the European team, and the captains on the American team are names that we've all know: Stuart Sink and Freddie Couples, and head by Zach Johnson, 2-time major winner. So the U.S. team is stacked, but also the European team is stacked as well. But before we get into the Ryder Cup, I've got to talk about the Solheim Cup and what took place over the weekend in Spain. The USA team jumped out to a 4-0 lead. You've probably heard about it. Maybe not, because women's golf does not get as much coverage as it probably should. But the USA team jumped out to a 4-0 lead after their morning matches on Friday. Europe came back to make it a 5-3 match after the game on the afternoon. So they go into Saturday, battle back and forth. They come out of Saturday 8-8. So they're all tied heading into the singles on Sunday, which is 12 singles, very exciting matches. Going back and forth, the Europeans were up at one point. The American team was up at one point. Coming down the stretch, Caroline Headwell knocked in a long birdie putt. That tied her match up. She went on to win her match. And then when she won her match, it just kind of sparked everything. And Carlotta Segunda went on to birdie 16 and 17. She beat Nelly Korda to get the 14th point, and that's what Europe needed. If you tie in the Solheim Cup or in the Ryder Cup, the team that won the prior event retains the title. So Segunda made this birdie putt at 16, a bomb, and then 17, she knocked it to about 3 feet and knocked it in. 18, she knocked it in, and that secured the 14th point for the Europeans to tie. The last match went down to Lexi Thompson, who scored 3 points for the USA team. She won her match, but it was too little, too late, 14-14, and Europe gets it back. The women played tremendous golf.
Yeah, you would have thought that, that was the third win in a row for Europe. You would have thought that with the lineup the U.S. had was clearly superior. A lot of unknown names on the European team. Motivation, coming out strong, take a 4-0 lead in the morning, and Europe pecked away at it. And all they needed was a tie, and they kept it. The good news is the U.S. only has to wait a year in order to get another chance back on U.S. turf.
Yeah, their schedule got messed up because of COVID. So the next year they'll play at the Robert Trent Jones down in Virginia. And I think the USA team is going to be fired up to play in that one after the way this one narrowly slipped away from them after an early lead. Part of the story of the American team was analytics. Stacey Lewis, the captain of the USA team, relied heavily on analytics when putting her teams together. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on the men's side, Rex. I know you've done a little homework on it and make it happen. But we've been seeing that in football quite a bit lately. The analytics taking charge happened in the Raider game the other night when the Raiders did not go for it on 4th down. And It's all analytics. So those guys are kind of running baseball now, and I never thought they would run golf, but it's starting
Yeah,
to get into
yeah.
golf as well.
Moneyball kicked it all off, and everybody's into that.
So golf is nothing if it's not tradition, Rex. And the Ryder Cup's been going on for over 90 years, started by Samuel Ryder. He was from Great Britain, loved golf. And at the time, golfers were having a tough time of it and weren't making enough money to survive. He came up with the idea for a Britain-American tournament. It was held in the USA, and USA did win that very first one. And over the years, USA dominated when it was USA versus Great Britain. But it changed. They added Ireland, and that made it a little more competitive. But eventually, they went to all of Europe. And since then, it's been very competitive. The U.S. overall leads 27-14 with 2 ties. One of the ties is a great golf tradition of being a gentleman. It was Jack Nicklaus against Tony Jacklin, and Jacklin had a long putt, and Nicklaus looked at him. It wasn't long. It was maybe 6 feet. And he looked at him and said, "Pick it up. It's good," which secured a tie. And the U.S. was able to retain because the tie, had Jacklin missed, the U.S. would have won outright, but they won anyway.
I don't think we'll ever see that again.
You're probably right, Rick. Do you think we would? I don't know if we would. Maybe Spieth would be the guy that would do something
Pick up
like
that
that.
6-footer.
Yeah. So they ended up in a tie, and it was one of the most gentlemanly things that's ever happened in the history of golf. And Nicklaus is always patted on the back for that. So over 91 years, they've played quite a few matches, 43 in fact. This will be the 44th. USA holds a 27-14-2 advantage, but has not won in 30 years in Europe. And they opened as a plus 125, or as a negative 125. They laid 125 as the favorite opening. That's been bet down now.
Yes.
It's bet down to the USA as plus 125 here at the South Point. Around town, you can get it at plus 110. So if you're going to bet the USA team, you want to come to the South Point. We've got the best number currently that's loaded there. I was surprised the USA opened as the favorite, Rex.
I think it's traditionally, you look at the makeup of the teams, and USA is stacked generally every time, but they haven't won overseas in 30 years.
Yeah.
So you can see based on player capabilities and just and names, and they would be the leader on paper, but that hasn't helped in the past. In fact, this team probably isn't as strong as prior teams when they had Mickelson and Tiger Woods. So like I said, 30 years you're betting against there.
I would agree that the U.S. team on paper traditionally is a dominating force against the European team, and especially the names you just mentioned, Tiger and Phil, and so many more. Couples was on those teams. I mean, these guys were just, Zach Johnson was on those teams, the Bulldog, and they just could not win over there. Now here we are going over there with, I'm missing something on this team. We'll get into the players here in a moment, but I'm not sure who the leader on this team overall is. It might be Jordan Spieth, who's been in the second most Ryder Cups on this team, but the European team has got quite a bit of fire. John Rahm, he's got the Ballesteros connection there. Rory, we know, is always going to be fired up. Now, they are missing Sergio and Ian Poulter and Lee Westwood. Those guys are kind of aged themselves out of the Ryder Cup. Sergio, I think, LIV'd himself off of the Ryder Cup team. He tried to buy himself back onto the team. In fact, we can talk about that a little bit later. But there's been some very, very strong USA teams. And Hal Sutton had the team that he sent out Phil and Tiger in the first match on Friday back in, I think it was 03 or 04, and they got whacked. And I mean, they were the number 1 and number 2 players in the world that got beat.
Who would bet against Tiger? But I mean, that's the uniqueness of the Ryder Cup is, Tiger had a decent singles record, but he was abysmal in 4-ball and foursome, just because it's so different. And, it's a team environment in this regard, and they're not used to playing like that. So.
And, and the interesting part of that is Tiger is possibly the greatest of all time. If not, he's in the top 2. And golf's an individual game. And here's Tiger trying to be on a team. And to his detriment, he was never able to really lift the team up and carry him on his shoulders when he played in the Ryder Cup. He had a losing record, in fact. And it's kind of sad because you would think we would have dominated all those years when Nicklaus was playing and Palmer was playing. Those guys took this thing seriously and they won it. And I don't know if Nicklaus ever lost a Ryder Cup as a team,
right?
But Tiger never won one on European soil. So that happened.
Different kind of pressure.
Yeah.
The foursomes, and your partner bombs it out there dead center of the fairway, and now you've got to hit a shot. Now, an alternate shot is much, much different and you're playing for your country.
Yeah.
A lot different pressure.
Well, we're going back a little bit. When Tiger and Phil were teamed up, there was a big controversy which ball they were going to play an alternate shot because Phil played Callaway and Tiger played Titleist. I mean, you knew there was trouble there, and it's unfortunate because Hal Sutton kind of put his reputation on the line and never recovered from that after the beating the USA team took. So the USA team is all together now over in Italy. Koepka joined him yesterday, or last night, I guess, after he played the Live Tour event that was won by Bryson DeChambeau, and Koepka finished 24th. Koepka had a kind of an interesting year, finished second at the Masters and won PGA. So, he played on the Live, and he still made it onto the USA team where Sergio didn't make it onto the European team. What do you think of the Koepka situation?
That's what's unique about this for the first time. We know there have been hard feelings, verbalized certainly by Rory on the opposing side, but people downplay it. He's an American. He deserves to be on the team. Definitely controversy as to whether he should have been there or not, but he's there. He's the only one now on the Live Tour that's there. So he came over separately. We'll see how it all pans out, but definitely the first time it's going to be unique from that standpoint.
Well, 5 majors. I mean, you kind of want a guy with 5 majors on your team, but as we just talked about, and so often after the USA team would lose in Europe, they would talk about how this just wasn't a team. They didn't gel as a unit where the Europeans were, and that's one of the reasons that the USA team couldn't win on foreign soil. And now you bring in Koepka, who, although he's not one of the guys that burned a lot of bridges, he didn't, talk like Phil and the Captain America.
Patrick Reed.
Patrick Reed. Yeah, I mean, those guys burned some bridges, and they were not going to be on the Ryder Cup team ever. On the other side of the pond, Luke Donald's now the captain of the European team because Henrik Stenson went to the Live, and they booted him off, and Luke Donald picked up the gauntlet on short notice, and he's got his team, and he didn't take any Live golfers onto his unit. In fact, he took a player that's only been a professional for 6 months and has 1 win in 9 tournaments, Ludvig Aberg, and he picked him over Sergio and several other guys he could have taken. I kind of find this Live thing has really messed with golf over the last year, and it definitely is messing with the Ryder Cup.
Yeah, no question. It's a factor to some degree. I mean, you can say what you want about Brooks Koepka, and he wasn't very verbal, but he still left. He was still complicit in that, and there's hard feelings over it, no doubt. Whether that is a factor when they're there, he's the only guy there.
Yeah.
So.
And Keegan Bradley is the one that kind of got left off the train. And Keegan had a good year. Now, in Zach Johnson's defense, Keegan Bradley has not been a factor for the last several years on the PGA Tour, but he did have a good year. He won this year. He played hard this year, made a comeback. He wanted to make the Ryder Cup team. He's a patriot. He made himself known that he really wanted to be on the team. And at the end of the day, Zach said, I got to take a 5-time winner. And there's some hard feelings there, but at the end of the day, if Keegan plays well in 2 years, maybe he'll get on the team 2 years from now. The other guy that's missing off of this team is Bryson DeChambeau, who had a tough year. He battled some injuries, but he won this past weekend. He shot 63 on Sunday to win the Live Tour event. And you may remember when we played the Ryder Cup 2 years ago when DeChambeau drove the first green, a 355, 60-yard hole, drove the first green, 2-putt birdie, fired up the USA team, and he's not going to be there. He's one of the guys that could be the fire-up leader.
Yeah, you don't look at that team and say immediately who's got the fire in their belly. You can do that with the European team, clearly. Rory, they've sent out first right out of the morning in the gate on the singles, the last 2 Ryder Cups for that reason. He's a great cheerleader. You want him to come out of the pack and lead that. But there's nobody. You look at the American team, there isn't anybody that comes to mind to say, oh, that's the natural leader on the team.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Let's talk a little bit about this team. So we'll start with the number 1 player in the world. Leading the USA team is Scotty Scheffler. This guy has been amazing. He's finished in the top 10 in 17 of his last 23 events. Won the scoring average for 2023 on the PGA Tour. Quiet guy, though. He's a quiet guy. So he's just what we're talking about. He's not going to be the guy that's out there cheerleading people on. He makes a birdie. You didn't know he made a triple bogey or a birdie. And he's going to be, a big key to this team because he's got to win. So do you lead quietly by winning that way? And who are they going to pair him with is interesting.
Yes, that's a great question.
Because he's kind of
spoken Texan.
Yeah. Xander Schauffele, another kind of a soft-spoken guy. Always close. He's got 7 career wins now, but he's got 12 runner-ups, and he's kind of number 2 guy on the USA team. He's 29 years old, and this USA team isn't old, but they're not young, right? They're almost in their prime. There's a lot of 28, 29, 30-year-old guys here. Xander, first time he's ever played in a Ryder Cup. A lot of pressure for this guy.
Well, yeah, he, great player. Xander actually played in the last Ryder Cup because he was paired with Patrick Cantlay.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. I remiss. I was jumping down to the next guy, Wyndham Clark. Yeah, Xander did play last one. So he's had the experience of doing it one time. I think that would be a good pairing of Scheffler and Xander. Those two are quiet guys. They kind of go about their business, hit the ball fairly straight, great putters, although Scheffler struggled with his putter coming down the stretch this year. I could see those guys as being a pairing. Then you get a little bit of inexperience. Wyndham Clark, he's a rookie, won the U.S. Open, and he was right there at the British Open before Harman ran away with it. Another guy. Right. He could walk right through this casino, and nobody would know who he is. Very quiet guy that kind of found himself this year. He was a little bit younger and couldn't win. He was always, in the top 25, and then busted through this year, winning the U.S. Open, and all of a sudden he's a factor. He bombs it.
Longest player on the team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
on the U.S. team.
Interesting on who you're going to pair Wyndham Clark with. And this team's, when you look at them on paper, they're a very solid team. The next guy on the list is Max Homa, who qualified. Max, 6 wins in the last 3 years, 4 in the last 2 years. He played in a Walker Cup when he was younger, but he's never played in a Ryder Cup. He did play on the President's Cup last year. And Max, another great guy. Now, he is an interesting character because he's high on social media. He's out there in the public. People do know who he is. He's not afraid to speak his mind, but I don't see him being a rah-rah cheerleader type guy. Maybe he'll surprise us.
And we don't know because we haven't seen them in that kind of an environment.
Yeah.
A lot of these guys are stoic on tour. You just don't see a lot of that. They keep their composure, try to keep a level head.
Mm-hmm.
Here it's a little different in that it does come down to a lot of emotion and showing the emotion and having that spill over to your teammates. So in a lot of cases here, we don't really know what to expect in terms of the emotion out of these.
Yeah, because some of our top players haven't been there, or if they have been, only one time. Like the next one, Brian Harman, he's our oldest player on the team. He's 36 years old. This guy is awesome. Went to University of Georgia, as they call him, the Bulldog. He's left-handed. At the British Open, he put on just an amazing show, the way he ran away with it at the Open. And this kid is a great match play player. I'm surprised he hasn't been on a Ryder Cup team previously. In fact, I bet him every year when they had the WGC match play down in Texas, I would bet him to the semifinals every year and cash and cash and cash. He's an ATM machine. And at the British Open this year, he made putting look amazingly simple. But it's his first one, and he's 36 years old. He's only got 3 wins on tour. So he got the British Open, got him a lot of points, got him to qualify for the team. Yeah. And now he's going to be, he's going to have, I think his feet will be sweating a little bit when he steps up to that first tee.
Yeah. If he wasn't an automatic qualifier, would he have been a captain's pick?
Yeah, I don't know.
Probably not.
He hasn't been.
No.
He's been out there for 14 years, right? And then Patrick Cantlay is a qualifier. So Cantlay, 8 wins, but none this year. He did win the Shriners back in 2018, so he's got a little bit of a local connection. And Patrick Cantlay, one of the best putters on tour, the boss of the Moss. But again, he's another guy that is not going to fire the team up, I don't think. He's a very kind of quiet guy. What do you know about Patrick Cantlay?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is slow play, unfortunately.
Right.
That's what is synonymous with him. But, it's interesting in the last Ryder Cup that he was paired with Xander Schauffele, and, they were undefeated in foursomes. So, which is a very unique environment with the alternate shot. I would suspect you're going to see them paired again for that very reason.
Yeah.
The very fact that they had success. So,
Really, we just went through the first 6 guys on the team. Brooks Koepka was a captain's pick, and I'm wondering who he plays with. Who are you going to put Koepka with? And that'll be an interesting scenario. We're going to take a break. Before we go to break, there's the numbers that are currently on the board. Europe is minus 120. They opened plus $1.40. USA is now plus 125. They opened minus $1.30. And a tie is 12-1. You can bet it as a 3-point result, or you can bet it as odds to lift the trophy individually. If the USA were to win, it's the same number. They are now plus 125, and Europe is minus 120 on the board. Hey, folks, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with more as we take a look at the rest of the American team and the European team and give you some of the prop bets right after this. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Barry Phillips with Rex Miller live at the South Point Racing Sportsbook with the South Point Ryder Cup show. Talking about the USA team and the top 6 players on the Ryder Cup team that we just ran through. We're going to go through the captain's picks here in a moment. Take a look at this odds on for the players to score points. And we've got a whole prop sheet that's available at the South Point. You can bet on which team is going to win. You can also bet on the dailies. Winner of the daily on the first foursomes, the 4-ball in the afternoon. You can then do the same thing on Saturday with the foursomes in the morning, 4-ball in the afternoon. And you can bet on the top rookie scorer or the top European scorer. And there's some interesting numbers there. But going back to the guys we were just talking about, all those guys we just mentioned are kind of the favorites. Scotty Scheffler, 5-1 to score the most points for the USA team. That makes sense because it figures that Scotty's probably going to play in all 5 matches, if 4, if not 5, right? Same thing for Cantley. He's going to play in a lot of matches. He's 5-1 as well. Xander Schauffele, he's 5-1 as well. So the top 3 American players are 5-1 that they're going to score the most points for the American team. And it makes sense that those 3 would be playing in a majority, if not all, of the matches. But as we get down the list a little bit, is where we're going to really find some good numbers.
I'm shocked. I'm really surprised. To me, Justin Thomas and Jordan Spieth at 12-1, they're going to play a lot. In fact, the last Ryder Cup, they played 36 before they went into the singles. So to me, that would be a good bet. They've got a lot of success in both foursomes and 4-ball. My guess is they're going to go with them again playing together.
Yep.
They know each other. They're good pals. Seems like a pretty good bet to me.
So they're interesting guys because, as we know, Spieth was the hottest man in golf for several years, and he kind of cooled off. He came back, got a win. Justin Thomas won the 22 PGA, but then had an absolutely terrible year. Funny story, he changed his diet, went on a new workout regime. He's doing everything he could because he wanted to win a major. One of the things he did was he went dairy-free. And after he missed the cut at the British Open, my wife said maybe he wishes he could have a milkshake about now.
The thing he hated to give up worse than anything else was pizza.
Yeah, so, and his scores climbed. But he is a tremendous Ryder Cup player, along with Jordan Spieth. So taking a look at Justin Thomas, it's his 3rd Ryder Cup. He's 6-2-1, so he's played in 9 of 10 potential matches he played in the first 2 that he played in. So he plays almost every single time, or has in the past. Mm-hmm. And the reason he does is because he and Jordan Spieth are so solid. They grew up playing junior golf together. So you could see these guys playing 3-4 matches together. If not all 4, they'll at least play probably 3. And streaky. Justin Thomas, this guy can throw up 5, 6, 7 birdies in a row anytime. He can go out and shoot a 30. And we all know about Spieth. He hits the ball closer to the hole than anybody. And they're both listed at 12-1, far down the list on the American chart. I could see, if I were looking at some places that we're going to put some wagers on, that we're going to put some on that team of Justin and well, you can't bet the team, but as individuals, as Justin and Jordan. And we jump back up a little bit. Brooks Koepka, 5-time winner. Now we're not sure who he's going to play with, but whoever it is, he's going to be tough. And he's 8-1. So you can get Koepka as a top American point scorer at 8-1. Then as we go down the list of guys, we're going to be surprised at some of the numbers that you're going to see on, especially on one guy. And I don't know what Chris was thinking when he got there. But Brian Harman. So Brian Harman, who we just mentioned before we went to break, wins the British Open, possibly one of the best putters on tour, always tough in match play when he plays in the WGC, 30-1.
30-1.
It might be worth $1 or $2 to take a look at Brian Harman as a top. Now, the problem you have with Brian Harman is he might not play in the opening match, right? And so if he doesn't play in the opening match and USA rolls in the opening match, they're not going to break those teams up.
No.
And that leaves Harman out the first day and he doesn't get to play.
And I agree. There's too many good players that are going to displace him. And you're right. I mean, if they do come out of the gate strong, they're gonna keep that going. So, I think for him, he may only play once. He may play once on both Friday and Saturday, possibly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So guy qualifies, and the captain's picks may play ahead of him. Running down the rest of the sheet, Colin Morikawa. Colin Morikawa, captain's pick, won the PGA a few years ago. Very straight hitter of the golf ball. Morikawa's been bet at 17-2, so that number may move a little bit. Now here's a guy that might play every match.
Great iron player. So
yeah.
A guy that would be a real strength to have on your team. I think he's going to play. I would see him playing a lot.
Yeah, Max Homa is 10-1, and we mentioned Max is possibly the kind of the fire up guy on the team. I'm not sure if he'll go off in the foursomes on Thursday or not, but Max Homa is at 10-1. Max is an interesting guy. He's won 6 times, but he hasn't won anything big. He wins the small tournaments that is not a full field of the best players, and so he hasn't really faced the Ryder Cup type of pressure that these other guys have forced. And then Ricky Fowler rounds out, and Sam Burns round out the team. Ricky Fowler is 14-1 to be the point leader, and Ricky was a captain's pick, disappeared for the last 5 years. He did have a good year, but I think he's only won 3. I think he's 3-7. Is that what his number is?
3-7-5 in the Ryder Cup.
Yeah.
Hasn't. This is his first appearance in 5 years. I don't know. I don't have a lot of confidence there.
Yeah.
Based on his record and the fact that he's really been a non-factor until just recently.
Right. So I would scratch. I'm not looking to put any money down on Ricky Fowler. Now, Sam Burns is a guy. I bet Sam Burns a lot in the last year. He's a guy that was really showing some potential in 22. He won a couple of times, and then he won the match play, the WGC match play that was held down in Texas, the Accenture, and he was awesome in the match play. And he's a great match play type player. He's 16-1, and Sam Burns is a guy that can go out and do some damage to the European team. And he is a guy that probably will be playing in the opening match. As you take a look at, you got to have 8 guys out there. So
right.
Who are they going to be? And I think Sam Burns is one of them that can make that, play the first two matches the first day. If he plays well, he can keep going. If not, that's when they sit him down and they bring in a Brian Harman or one of the others. And he's 16-1. So it's pretty good value.
Right.
I think your value on the USA team is that middle slot of Justin Thomas, Jordan Spieth, and Sam Burns. Now, if Zach Johnson doesn't play Justin Thomas on the opening round because he was a pretty controversial captain's pick because of the year that he had, that kind of throws that money out the window. But if he does play in the opening match, he'll probably play in all of them, I got to think, right? Unless he falls apart on it.
Yeah, I got to think that he picked them just because of his past record with Spieth. Even though he hasn't been playing well, I still expect that he's going to get a lot of time on the court.
Well, he's so streaky, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the guy, he is so streaky that he gets a hot putter going on, and with Spieth and him get along so well, that's part of it, right? We keep talking about you got.
And I think he can charge up the team with that.
Yeah,
I think that's the idea.
Yeah. Well, let's take a look at the European team. The favorite on the European team is Rory McIlroy, 9-2 to score the most points for the USA or the European team. Rory has been there, quite a few times, and he is the fired up leader of this European team. Rory is spectacular, as we all know. Everything he does is strong. He's 12-12-4 in the Ryder Cup. He played in 10 and 12 and 14, 16, 18, and 21. Guy plays every single match. So you got good value for your dollar just because he's going to play He's going to play. He's going to play all 5 matches.
Yeah.
So it gives him a chance to get the most points just because he's going to be out there. And Rory's number 2 in the world behind Scheffler, but those guys flip-flop quite a
Well,
bit.
the interesting thing with Rory is this is going to be his 7th Ryder Cup, I believe. And so, he's split. He's got half that he's played in Europe and half in the U.S., but he's played a lot. And I would suspect, at 9-2 on the odds there that we're going to see him probably playing every day, every round, probably.
Yeah. I think you're going to see the same thing with John Rahm.
Yeah.
You're going to see both of those guys on the golf course a lot, and Rahm is 5-1 to get the most points for the European team. And if I were to look at the value, 5-1 is pretty strong. When you get a favorite at 5-1 instead of even money or 2-1 or 3-1 like in horse racing, you got to take a look at it, especially when John Rahm's, he's going to play.
Well, and both those guys are emotional.
Yes.
So they're looking at him. Those guys get hot. Emotional leaders. They're going to get fired up. They're going to energize the team. I think, the reason that they're listed the way they are is just because they're going to be out there. They're going to be, and Rory has gone out in singles. He's been the first one out of the gate for that reason.
Victor Hovland, enigma. This guy, when he's on, he is as tough as anybody in the game. Doesn't hit it, really straight, but he for a little guy, he pounds it out there. Great putter. He had a problem with his short game for a while, but he's got that solidified, and he's at 5-1. He's another one. So if you looking at the European team, you can almost pick who's going to be out there all the time. Well, you can't do that with the USA team.
No.
You don't know who's going to be on the course for 4 or 5 of the matches, but Hovland's going to be out there every single match. He's a young guy, 29. You got Rahm, you got McIlroy. So 5-1, 5-1, and McIlroy 9-2. Tommy Fleetwood, 13-2. He's a captain's pick. Tommy didn't qualify with his European points. He plays a lot in the U.S., of course. So Tommy's at 13-2. And here's a guy that you think he's going to, every time you watch him on TV, you think he's going to bust out. He'll get the lead, give it away, falls back on Saturday, and then Sunday shoots a 62 or 63. So I'm not sure what Tommy Fleetwood is going to do. I'm not sure if they'll play him every match because he's hot and cold, but he's 13-2. Your thoughts on Tommy Fleetwood?
He's foursomes. He's undefeated in foursomes. So to me, you got to have him out there. And if you take him out in the morning, and I'm not sure we know whether it's going to be foursomes or 4-ball. They kind of alternate that. But if it's foursomes in the morning, he's going to be out there. And if he wins, I think you got to keep going with these.
Yeah. So he's been in 2 Ryder Cups. He goes 4-2-2. So that's 10 matches. He's played in 10 out of 10 when he was there. He played in every single match that he played in. And in foursomes, he goes 2-0. So pretty solid guy to make it happen. Tommy Fleetwood, 13-2. Tyrrell Hatton, he's 15-2. And Tyrrell Hatton's another guy that you just think he's going to bust out and win and win and win. He hasn't been able to win, but he's a very solid player. And Tyrrell Hatton hasn't, when I say he hasn't been able to win, he's got 10 wins internationally.
Yeah.
But on the U.S. side, he hasn't been able to do anything. Tyrrell Hatton is just
a bulldog, though. He's the counterpart, I think, to Brian Harman. Is the guy that just grinds and he's a good player.
Yeah, he's out there and he's going to make things happen for that team. He's one of those guys that don't look past him. He's going to be there. He's always there at the majors. He always seems to show up on the leaderboard on Saturday at the majors. So there's a rookie, Nicolai Hojgaard, is from Denmark. He's only 22 years old. This is the first year that Nicolai Hojgaard is going to be playing. He's 25-1, and it's just a matter of how much play he's going to get because this kid is spectacular. He's a really, really solid player. He's got 3 international wins. This is his first Ryder Cup, but he's one of the ones that Luke Donald has spoken extremely highly of. And when you listen to Luke Donald talk about him, you think that he might get a lot of playing time just because the way Luke has talked about
the interesting thing, I think, when you look at the meshing of teammates in the 4-ball and the foursome, this year you've got 9 countries represented in Europe. And I don't know if that's a factor. You don't have, like, John Rahm doesn't have his Spaniard to team with, which he's done it with Sergio. So I don't know, does Rahm go with, somebody from Denmark or a Norwegian or a Swede? It's a great question. But I look at Nicolai Hojgaard. 25-1. Robert MacIntyre, another kind of enigma, 35-1 from Scotland. But Robert MacIntyre won on this course earlier on the DP Tour.
Yeah.
So
he won to qualify to get into the Ryder Cup team for the European team.
Would you not think? I mean, and then again, they've got the analytics for this and Hojgaard won it at Marco Simone, I think, several years ago.
Yeah.
So on the tour, so those two guys have positive experience on the course. It'll be interesting to see how much they're going to play.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny. Robert MacIntyre. He played on Sunday with Matt Fitzpatrick and beat Matthew Fitzpatrick, and bet it's what qualified him to get into the Ryder Cup team. He's 35-1. He's the long shot on the board. There's 3 long shot Europeans on the board to get the most points: Nicolai Hojgaard, Sepp Straka, and Robert MacIntyre. So you would think, based on this number, that they're not thinking that these guys are going to get a lot of playing time, that they're not going to see more than 2 matches, probably get in one of the foursomes, maybe one of the 4 balls, and then the singles. And so that's why their number is so high, is the playing time that they're going to get. But if one of these 3 guys gets out on Thursday morning, then look out, because they might get hot and get to play the entire time. Pretty good number. Matthew Fitzpatrick is 9-1. Great guy. Matthew Fitzpatrick has logged every single shot he's ever hit since he was a teenager. He has a book. He keeps track of every single shot. Won the U.S. Open. He's a solid player. And Matthew Fitzpatrick is a really the thing about European players, and one of the reasons they do so well in Ryder Cup, Rex, I think you'll agree, is that they play a lot of match play growing up over there. Where in the U.S., we're more about what did you shoot? What did you shoot? And anybody plays junior golf, it's all about what did you shoot. But over there, there's a lot of match play that goes on. And so they're kind of used to that format, which you have to be, because you can get stunned. You can get stunned. You hit a shot, you're 6 feet, the other guy's 25 feet,
Absolutely.
He knocks it in, you miss, boom. The next 3 holes, you're wondering what happened.
Well, you don't think Matthew Fitzpatrick is going to go in with a chip on his shoulder? He's 0-5 in the Ryder Cup. So, a guy that you look at and say, well, he's got to be one of their better players. He hasn't had any success in the Ryder Cup. So I think he's gonna come out with a chip on his shoulder.
And it's his second one. I mean, or third one now. He's 0-5, and he's been in 3 of them. And he's something that he will be playing extremely hard. Now, another captain's choice is Justin Rose. Justin Rose comes in at 12-1. Justin's 43 years old. Remember when he turned pro after he played well at the British Open and it didn't make a cut for the first year, and now he's won a U.S. Open. And Justin Rose has 14 wins, I think, internationally over the last several years. He's kind of long in tooth, but I think this is where the European team probably outsmarted the American team by putting a guy like Justin Rose on the team.
Completely agree.
Yeah.
Completely agree with his experience to have some stabilizing force there. You can look to Rory and you can look to John Rahm as being emotional. You don't think that with Justin Rose, but he's going to be a stabilizing force. And
so Justin Rose probably won't play. He'll probably play maybe 2 or 3 matches, and he's 12-1. So I'm not liking any value there. And this Ludvig Aberg is a pretty amazing guy. 12-1. He's only been a pro since June. He's played 9 tournaments, won 1 of them, number 1 amateur in the world, and
23 years old. And they've got him. He's 12-1. Shane Lowry's 18-1. He's the Open champion.
Right.
So what? Yeah.
Well, I don't know if Shane Lowry's going to play more than a couple matches. I don't know if he could play 36 a day. Right? He's a little bigger. He's a little bigger.
Yeah.
He looks more like me than he looks like Tiger. That's for sure. Hey, we're going to take a break, Rex, and when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about what are the opportunities for the USA team and how they're going to win this thing. And we got a couple of players we haven't talked about yet. So we'll be back with a little bit more of the South Point Ryder Cup show right after this. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the South Point Ryder Cup special. Barry Phillips with Rex Miller as we're going over the South Point's lines on the Ryder Cup, as well as our picks and plays on some of these opportunities to make a little bit of money. The South Point has a full 2-page sheet of prop bets for the Ryder Cup. First time they've ever put that out. And there's some value here, folks. I can tell you, if you like to bet golf, and you can bet it every day, you could bet it every match, and then you can bet it for the total. And it's pretty interesting. You can even bet the individual players. One of the things on this tout sheet, Rex, is the top USA rookie score and the top European rookie score. So both teams have 4 rookies on the team of 12, which who's going to handle the pressure better than the others? Who's going to get the playing time more than the others? And that's really what we've been talking about, is the playing time that they're going to get. Max Homa is plus 160 for the USA team, and I think Max will get a lot of playing time. He's a pretty steady, solid player. Wyndham Clark is plus 225. Wyndham Clark won the U.S. Open, was in the top 5 at the British Open, and has had a very solid career, but really come alive in the last 6 to 8 months. And he's plus 225 as the top USA rookie scorer. He's only got to outperform the other 3, and I could see that happening. And one reason I can see it happening is because Brian Harman probably won't get enough matches in. Brian Harman is plus $5, and Sam Burns is plus 250. So if I were to make a wager in that category, and just seeing this sheet for the first time, I could see something on Wyndham Clark or Sam Burns and make one of those guys get me the 220, the 250, and maybe the number will move a little bit. I don't know how much these are moving.
And Wyndham Clark, as the longest hitter on the team, and the fact that he has had the bravado to say, I want to go up against Rory, to me is a great bet, because he could be a real sleeper. I mean, you could see him if he does, and you have a guy that says, I want Rory, and Rory's going out number 1 on Sunday morning. Why wouldn't you go ahead and say you want him?
Yeah.
You're going to get him.
Yeah.
So, and it depends how he's playing. If he's playing well, I'm guessing that he's going out. So I think that's a great bet, because these guys are all going to see, you would traditionally see limited time, and they're not going to play as much.
Right.
So
it's kind of funny. The last time somebody made those kind of comments, I think it was Stephen Ames against Tiger, the match play. They didn't even play the back 9. I think they only got to the 10th hole, and they folded it up. So you're right. Wyndham Clark did come out pretty bold this week. He said, Rory's great. I respect him. He's a great player, but I think I can beat him. And I wouldn't be out here if I didn't think I could beat him. So Wyndham Clark at plus 225, pretty solid number. On the European side, the top rookie scorer, Ludvig Aberg, is plus 190. He's the favorite. He's 23 years old and has 9 tournaments under his belt. This kid might not be able to put a tee in the ground.
Somebody knows something, maybe. I don't.
You know, it's got to be based on Luke Donald talking about this kid, because Luke Donald said this guy, the reason he took him over all the other players in Europe was that he's supposed to be a generational type player, that he's going to be on the Ryder Cup team for the next 12, 13 matches like Phil and Tiger were for the USA team. That's yet to be seen, but Aberg is the favorite. Sepp Straka is plus 250. Nicolai Hojgaard is plus 260. And Robert MacIntyre is plus 35.
I got a circle around Robert MacIntyre plus 350. Nobody knows much about him, but he he was an automatic qualifier for a reason. He won earlier at this course on the DP Tour. You got to go with the guy. I mean, he's had success just 2 months ago.
Yeah, I totally agree. He's 27 years old. He's just really starting to get into his prime. He really wanted. I saw an interview with him. He really wanted to be on the Ryder Cup. He just, his whole year he geared to be on the Ryder Cup. I don't think you get a guy that comes out and says, I want to be on this Ryder Cup team. I'm playing to get on the Ryder Cup team. And then he gets there and you don't play. Right? I think he's a great value at plus 350. Getting back to the guys we kind of jumped over as we were talking about the European team, we just briefly mentioned Shane Lowry. Shane Lowry is 18-1. And as I mentioned, I don't think Shane Lowry can play 5 matches. Physically, he would break down. Great player. I would bet Shane Lowry in the singles. I think Shane Lowry will be a bulldog in the singles, and he's a guy that I would bet in the singles, but I'm not going to get him to be the top point scorer. Sepp Straka is someone we just briefly touched on, 25-1, really came into his own this year. Straka is a young guy from Austria, 30 years old. He has 3 pro wins, 2 in Europe. He's 22 in the world, and he's kind of quietly climbed up the ladder. And Straka is 25-1. Now, he is a guy that I think might get more playing time. He's a guy that can, he could play all 36 a day if he had to. He's strong, big kid, can really hit the ball. I like Straka at 25-1 to maybe put a little bit of something on him as well. And then lastly, on the proposition sheet that Chris currently has out is the Ryder Cup margin of victory. You can bet by who's going to win and by how much. So USA to win by 1 to 3 points is 7-2, and Europe to win by 1 to 3 points is 7-2. USA to win by 4 to 6 plus 475. Europe to win by 4 to 6 is 5-1. USA to win by 7 to 9, that's 7-1, and Europe to win by 7 to 9 is 8-1. Remember the last time they played was 19-9.
Yeah, they've been blowouts.
USA won by 10. If you take the USA to win by 10 or more, it's 10-1. If you think Europe is going to get revenge, it's 12-1 if they take 10 or more. And if it ends up in a tie, it's 13-1.
Which we just saw with the Solheim Cup.
Yeah, just happened. So interesting margin of victory for these two teams. I think Chris putting together a pretty solid sheet here for the proposition of what's going on. I really like the opportunity on these rookie scores, especially since there's only 4 of them. It's like a 4-horse race, and you're not going to take the chalk, then you got some pretty good value the rest of the way.
Well, and the proposition bets on the Ryder Cup are great because there's so much excitement. Unlike a normal golf tournament where you've got a lot of action going on. So enthusiasm, no question. And some of these in here, some of these really are attractive in my mind.
Yeah. So Rex, we talked a little bit briefly when we opened up the show about Stacey Lewis using analytics in the Solheim Cup for the women, and you've done a little homework on it for this event as well. We do not have access to that information that the captains have, but they've got a ton of analytics where they're looking at this golf nowadays.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting how that has played into, and I think you could make a case that's the reason that we've seen the margins of victory that we've seen when they're on their home turf. And I don't know. I mean, Europe has definitely been using analytics. In fact, they're using it extensively because they've got analytics on Marco Simone for the team. And so they're using that heavily. And some of the stuff that they did in Paris or in France with analytics was pretty amazing. I mean, they grew the rough longer because they knew the Americans would hit it farther. They typically have slower greens. Americans like the fast greens. They go with the slower greens. But the one that I really find interesting is how they set up for foursomes with alternate shots and how they move the tees. They're not supposed to make any course changes during that week, but yet we know there's a member of each committees. They've got a European and American on that committee that's supposed to police it, but frankly, they don't really do that.
Well, they move the tees and the cups.
Yeah, they're gonna be doing that, but it's changes to the course setup in terms of how long the rough's going to be, how close they mow the greens, and then the one analytical change that I found really interesting that turned out to really pay dividends when they were in France in 18 was the fact that they saw where the gallery was roped off. They moved it back 2.5 yards on each side because of analytics. So they didn't want the Americans hitting stray drives and being able to hit off trampled down grass. So they moved it just 2.5 yards, and it turned out that made a huge difference based on analytics. So now instead of hitting on trampled down grass, they're hitting out of the rough. And the rough is going to be longer here. They've placed traps at carries at 310 and 300, again, aimed at the Americans, where if you clear that trap, it's going to be very narrow. So they're doing anything they can to shorten or to lengthen the course for the Americans. So it's worked in the past for them. So I mean, hard to.
I'd make the argument that the U.S. did the same thing to Europe when they played here, and we had a 19-9, boat race against them last time they came to the U.S. So yeah, clearly when you lose for 30 straight years, that something's going on with the way the courses are prepared and the way that they're setting everything up. And that's probably something that's we're going to see definitely happen as we go over there. Now, this course has got it's pretty interesting. I was looking at the layout. There's 2 par 4s that are under 350 yards, which is tempting. Right now, what do you do on those holes?
Trap holes.
Yeah. So you have 350-yard hole, an alternate shot, and you're the guy teeing off. You try and drive the green, you knock it into the junk, and now your partner's got to figure out how to get it out of there. Those holes are 6 is one. I think it's 6 and 11 are the 2 holes that are under 350 yards for driving the ball. So those will be interesting holes to watch as well. This course is supposed to hold up to 50,000 fans, but it's not supposed to be a friendly course for the golfers. Like there's a lot of problems in the driving areas, as you just mentioned. Sand traps at 310, like you have to hit forced carries, which a lot of the USA players on this team can't do. Brian Harman's one of them. Morikawa's one of them.
Which makes it interesting, right?
Because now you put Morikawa with Scotty Scheffler, and Scheffler tees off on the holes that he can carry those bunkers, and maybe that's how it happens, right? You put the straight iron player with the long hitter, and the long hitter has to tee off on the holes that have the forced carries. It's going to be interesting golf. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you look at the American team, and I mean, the top 6 drivers on teams in terms of distance doesn't even include Brooks Koepka. So there's still a long hitting team, and believe me, the Europeans know that, and they want to trap them. They want to goad them into that. The other thing they do with the analytics is they have all the information on how aggressive players are with back pin positions, and I'm guessing you'll see, again, not knowing the analytics, but when you see those rear pin placements with rough behind, the whole idea is to go ahead and goad those players into wanting to be aggressive. So that'll be a fun thing to watch.
Yeah,
that's how they set it up.
So I'll run down them one last time, and Rex, you can give me the play that you like here. On the U.S. team, it's Scotty Scheffler at 5-1. Patrick Cantley is at 5-1. Xander is at 5-1. Those 3 U.S. players will probably play all 5 matches. Brooks Koepka is at 8. Morikawa is at 17-2. And then Max Homa is at 10-1, the first one in double digits. I think this is where you want to jump in. Justin Thomas and Jordan Spieth are both 12-1.
Yeah.
And you like either one or both of those guys as a value proposition.
I do. I'm circling both of them. That's where my money would go. The other one for me is Colin Morikawa is undefeated in the Ryder Cup, 17-2. They're great iron player. You know he's going to be a factor in foursomes. So I like those 3 bets.
Yeah, if I were to take a 4th bet on, I agree with you on those 3. And if I were to take a 4th wager on the USA team, it'd be Wyndham Clark at 16-1, the U.S. Open winner, which means you have to hit the ball straight. You're not going to put it in the rough a lot. And he really came on strong at the end of 2023. Then Brian Harman rounds out the field at 30-1. And anybody's got $10, you can get you 300 if he seems to get in the lineup. On the European side, as we wrap it up, Rory McIlroy is 9-2. John Rahm is 5-1. Victor Hovland is 5-1. And then it jumps up. Tommy Fleetwood goes to 13-2. Terrell Hatton is at 15-2. Matthew Fitzpatrick, he's 0-5 in Ryder Cup. He's 9-1. Justin Rose is 12-1. Ludvig Aberg is 12-1. Shane Lowry is at 18. Nicolai Hojgaard is 25-1. And I got to check next to that name. I think he might play a lot for some reason. Sepp Straka is at 25-1. And then Robert MacIntyre, who you like a lot, Rex,
I do,
is at 35-1.
Well, and the other thing about that I like, and I do like both Hojgaard and MacIntyre because they've won on the course, and 25 and 35-1. The other thing is do you really think we're going to continue to see blowouts? We just came off the Solheim Cup with a tie. If it's lower scoring, I think you have a better chance of those guys potentially being able to rack up the points. If it goes, the kind of point total that you've had in recent Ryder Cups, you may be looking at a McIlroy and a Rahm, which I think is what's driving that, is the fact that they have not been close matches.
Lastly, on the board is you can bet the USA or the Ryder or the Europeans to win. 1-3 for either one of those is at 7-2. And I'm thinking it's going to be a close Ryder Cup that will come down to a couple of points because Sunday singles, those guys battle so hard. Nobody wants to be embarrassed when it gets to singles. So I'm kind of liking, believe it or not, the Europeans and laying the 1-3.
That's where I'm at. We're aligned with that one.
All right, Rex. Well, let's get on the couch on Friday, watch some golf, and
love it.
See you soon. Thanks for joining us, folks. See you soon.